chirp.
Everybody, welcome to, and I'm going to try and do the title here, Tony. This is From Animation to Children's Books and Back.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the longest title in Lighthouse history, Lightbox history, guys. I'm sorry about that.
So honestly, it's about being in the animation industry, but also sort of having another foot in children's books. And honestly, we'll talk a little bit about comics and things like that, about just sort of, I don't want to call it a pivot because these people have not left animation, okay?
Right. But before we introduce our all-star cast of characters here, I do want to say we want to make this did anybody heard of the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast? Anybody? Woo! Okay. This is going to be an official Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast. So we're going to do the intro. You guys are part of it. So there will be things that we're going to cast your way. We want to hear your voices coming through on the mics. So be loud and rowdy. That's all part of the fun. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast. Oh, I love it. Tom, as we record this right now, we're at LightBox.
We are live
Expo.
at LightBox Expo 2024.
That is where we're at. Yes. Oh, you got the dates right and everything? Good. So yeah, we are doing a panel here, a very exciting one too, which I feel the most odd about being on because I haven't really done children's books.
Tony hasn't worked in animation or children's books.
That's right. So it's called Animation to Children's Books and Back Again. We're going to talk about kind of crossover that artists tend to do in the animation industry from two different perspectives, publishing children's books and then also working in the animation community.
Yes, and we do have a live audience. We want you to come up to the mic at the very end, probably the last 15 minutes, if somebody can wave. All of you can do it, and then we'd really see you.
Let's just start the wave.
Or start the wave at about 15 minutes, and so you can do a little Q&A, and there is a mic right here. But I really want to get into this and introduce our rock stars. By the way, it's kind of a Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast thing that we mispronounce every single person that comes on.
We will butcher your names.
So we're going to let you guys introduce you, and what I want you to do is introduce yourself. We're going to start over there with Andy and end up with Elsa. And so please say the book or books that you've illustrated, but also a little bit of your animation background, some of the projects you worked on. Go for it.
My name is Andy Harkness, and my book that I brought today is Wolf Boy, and I've also got Wolf Boy is Scared, the sequel. The first book was Bug Zoo, and I just recently illustrated a book that went up on the SpaceX rocket and was read from space about a month and a half ago.
Whoa, I saw that posting. We're going to get back to that.
Yeah.
Let's not get political, though.
That's good marketing.
Wow.
I don't know how you figured out how to get marketing connected to a space launch, but that's pretty cool.
That part was easy, thank God. And I started on Pocahontas a long, long time ago. And I drew one leaf on Lion King, though, just one leaf. That was it. And currently it's Skydance animation.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, everyone. My name is Pete Oswald. I am an author and illustrator and also work in animation, just like the guy said.
Just Tom.
You could call us the Bancroft
Thank
Brothers.
you.
That's
Bancroft
part
Brothers,
of the logo.
The guys. Today I brought my book Hike, which I wrote and illustrated. And when I say I wrote, there's like one word in there, so it's a wordless picture book. But I'm probably most known for the Food Group series, which I co-created with author Jory John. We have the bad seed, the good egg, the cool bean, the smart cookie.
The Veggie Tales.
Yeah, there we go. So those have been a great series to work on. I've illustrated in over 35 books now, and I've been working in animation for over 20 years. Just recently finished production design on the Garfield movie.
Garfield movie in the house.
Elsa?
Hi, I'm Elsa Chang. The books that I brought today are my latest releases. They're the little golden books of The Wicked, the film adaptation. And I've also worked on a bunch of other little golden books. These two are my sixth and seventh ones.
Wow.
I've done one for Despicable Me, for Sing, for Little Secret Life of Pets 2, and I've also done a Greek God and Goddesses little golden books, and mostly movie franchises is what I work on. And I'm also a character designer. I'm currently at Sony Pictures Animation at the moment, but the last studio I was at was Disney Television, and I was on the Mickey Mouse shorts for 3 years. I was on Ghost and Molly McGee and The Proud Family, DuckTales, and a bunch of other things.
All right.
All right. So let me add to that. So out of the Bancroft brothers, Tony and I have both illustrated some books. I've done almost 50 of them through the years, and they were licensed books, and this is going to lead to a question. Licensed books, which were like VeggieTales and some Disney books. I did the Brother Bear, stuff and things like that. And then later on, some original stuff and educational books. But for like abcmouse.com, a lot of online books too. If you guys, anybody, abcmouse.com? Really? Okay. Yeah, that was fun. That's fine.
You're dating yourself.
I'm not there anymore, and I don't own it. And then Tony came in and helped me on some VeggieTales books.
Yeah, I think that you just had so many they contracted you to do. Some fell off on the ground, and I just picked them up and said, "Can I illustrate these?"
That's right.
And you let me do it.
But that was for
nice.
Scholastic. Where I want to go with on this is the difference between licensed books and creator originated ones. And it feels like both you guys over there have done a lot of that side on the creator side, where you're either writing it and illustrating it. And Elsa, you've done a lot of licensed books. And I just want to kind of give a groundwork about the difference between those two things, maybe even the difficulty level of trying to get one gig over another. I want to start with Elsa about licensed books. And, obviously what that means is generally that you're working with a studio, you're working with a brand that's already established. But go ahead.
So usually I get reached out to by the publishing company, like with the Little Golden Books, it's through Penguin Random House. I've also worked with Simon & Schuster. They've done licensed stuff for various films. But yeah, I think it's a lot of, my work goes through like the art team, and they pass it on to the film team or whoever's in charge of marketing or so they have to approve it. The movie studio has to approve it, and then it comes back to me. So there's like multiple steps. Multiple eyes have to look at it before I get the notes. And yeah, I don't know what the process is for like more original books, but sometimes it can take a while because it has to go through so many hands, and
that's difficult, right?
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, you're working on it very early. I remember that with Brother Bear. I was doing the books well before the movie came out, but I'd animated on the film, and I had all the model sheets, so I was cheating the whole time, looking at the model sheets. But they wanted people that knew that style and stuff. So does that work? And this is to tie into the what we're doing today is, were some of those properties that you'd already been storyboarding or working on and designing, and then you kind of folded into doing the children's books for?
Could you phrase that again?
Oh,
Sorry.
So
did you do children's books for any properties that you had actually worked on the show?
in
Oh,
animation,
no.
yeah.
No, I haven't. Everything is like brand new to me. Usually like at Disney Feature, sometimes they'll hire like one of the visual development artists to work on one of the children's book. But I've not been attached to any of the IPs. And like for the Despicable Me Little Golden Book, they actually produced one maybe like 5 years after the film came out, so there was a bit of a gap there. Also, the books that I work on have a pretty tight deadline, especially the ones that have a film attached to it. Like for Wicked, it comes out in November. I've
heard of Wicked. Anybody else? Wicked? Small thing.
Wonderful musical, love it. I had 6 months total to work on these two books, so maybe 3 months per book, which I think I don't know. It's tight, right? It's tight. Yeah, it's super tight, and that's from sketching the cover, getting that approved, coloring the cover, getting that approved, sketching the interiors, getting that approved, revising notes, getting that approved, and then coloring it, getting it approved, and so on. And so,
Well, and there's a bigger layer there that you're kind of leaving out in a way, is by designing the look of the book, honestly, because this is a live action film, and they're going to you and they're not just saying illustrate it, they're saying, oh, do all the character designs for it. Like, I want to see the animated version of Wicked, basically. You got to do that first, then illustrate the book.
yeah, I felt super fortunate and lucky to take on this project because it's one of my favorite musicals. So, but I had worked with this art director before on The Little Golden Book, and I worked with her on several previous books. So she already knew like my style and like what I'm capable of. She sent samples of my work, and I'm sure other art directors there sent samples that they liked, and Universal Pictures would pick like which artist they would want to represent their children's book. And so I think I just got really lucky, and they were fine with the style, and so it was pretty easy. I didn't have to adapt to anything really, so it's just really my personal style for the book.
Cool. Pete, what about you? What was your inroad? Licensed books, published books?
I started with a licensed book, working on Cloudy the Chance of Meatballs, and I was working on that film, and then they asked me to do...
What was your role in that? Production designer?
No, I was a character designer on that.
Character designer, okay.
Yeah, and did some biz dev on that as well. So it was the same type of thing. Like you already know that world, you know that shape language, and it was a really great intro to kind of the children's book world. So I did that. I did a couple of those books for the films, and then that's when a book agent reached out to me and started doing some more original stuff. So that kind of was like my intro and calling card, if you will, to kind of like, oh, I can do this, you know.
I feel like a lot of people kind of, that's their journey, right? You'll do the license thing first, you know the material already, so you're the natural choice. But then you could spin off of that. Corey Loftus had done, Corey Loftus, I got to do that. I'm super fan of Corey Loftus. I wish he was here right here. But Zootopia, he was the main character designer and stuff like that for Zootopia. He did a Zootopia book, and
I bought it. I had to get that thing.
I bought that one. Didn't buy any other books off of that, but Corey's I'm buying, yeah. And I think that's a great way, an entryway into the industry, though, of publishing, right?
It totally is.
Well, and what you're telling the audience right now is very depressing. You're saying work in the industry for 10 or 20 years, then you can get into children's books. Yeah, they'll come to you. Andy, let's hear your story. I know it's sort of similar, but keep getting into the original stuff where they let you write it is so hard. And I feel like they just, right off the bat, you were able to do that. Is that true?
It definitely wasn't right off the bat. But yeah, very similar to Pete, where I think there was a special I worked on called Prep and Landing years ago. I was
Prep and Landing.
Oh, yeah.
Art director on that, and then the book, and it's very similar to Pete. So I got to do the book. And then Moana, I was working on Moana, and I got the opportunity to do the Golden Book for Moana, and I've always wanted to do a Golden Book, always. But I could not. We were like in the last month of production. It's very hard to say no to that. But my story, I'll keep it really brief, but like I've always wanted to do kids' books. Animation only kicked in college. It was when Disney came and visited our school. And it became like, oh, that could be a great career too. I really jumped on the bandwagon.
What school was it?
Columbus College of Art and Design in Ohio.
Okay.
I'm the only one.
You're the only one in the house.
Only one. Yeah.
All right, excellent.
Cal Arts.
But I got into animation. It's been a wonderful job, but always have been trying to do this book and write a book, and so much rejection. I mean, so many doors closed and rejection. That's a whole story on its own. But finally, Bug Zoo got through, and then Wolf Boy is an idea. Bug Zoo is a Disney animation series picture book. So the company supported it, and it went out with that name on it, on the cover. But it was my book and my story. Wolf Boy was independent. But I still fail way more than I don't fail, if that makes sense. I mean, there's just, for every book that's here, there's like 10 others that are just never going to be made. Just the way it is.
Well, one of the things that I want to react to, one of the things that you said, and I'd love to hear you guys' inputs on this too, but it seems like children's books has, since the beginning of time in the animation industry, people go into animation and then the grass is greener on the other side of the hill, and they're like, but what I really want to do is I have a great project for a children's book. I really want to be a children's book illustrator. And then vice versa, which is why we're doing this panel. There's children's book authors that start in the publishing world and go, but what I really want to do is I want to be a designer for animation.
You're like, the money's in animation.
Yeah. So all three of you guys, which one were you? You must have been one of those.
I was kind of, so I got into animation first, and I always loved children's books. I used them as reference for any design work, and just poured over old, Mary Blair and Sasek books. Like those were some of my inspirations just for my animation design. And then I didn't even think about children's books, and this kind of just came about. And so what I love about doing both is that I think they both make you a stronger artist for storytelling reasons, and we can go into the kind of the nit and gritty of like what you maybe have a little bit more freedom in the children's books world as opposed to a big production at a studio. But I think being able to do both of those makes me a better animation artist, and it makes me a better children's book artist. Like having that versatility. That's what I've really enjoyed, kind of bouncing back and forth through both.
Elsa, do you have a viewpoint on that? Just keep it on. Just keep that on, okay?
I started, I applied to Art Center College of Design, and I got into the illustration track because I was interested in children's book. I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. I thought maybe like magazine editorial or something to do with art. It wasn't until maybe like second semester of Art Center where I found out about visual development, and it kind of combines like animation, storytelling, world building, illustration, all that. So that's when I kind of changed gears a little, and that's when I started pursuing that a little bit more. My first job right after I graduated, we did like a graduation kind of speed dating thing with like all the recruiters from like publishing companies, from studios and other companies, and I got picked up to do the Pixar Brave book. So that was my very first project outside of graduating. So children's book ended up being what I did like right after school, but at the same time I still worked in animation, still like still trying to improve my portfolio, trying to get into animation while working in children's book.
That's interesting though. You're saying you worked on the Brave children's book, didn't work on the film, and all along it sounds like you're like, but I really want to work on the film, right? There was part of that.
Well, the film was done, probably. Yeah.
I think. It was definitely like an honor to like even touch the franchise. Like, I was a big fan of Pixar, and to be able to even be an artist, whether it was film or if it was like product design or book, children's book, I was just happy to be like a part of it. That was my feeling then. And like, I wasn't really looking for any studio in particular. I just wanted to work. I just, new student graduating, I just wanted to get a job. So it really didn't matter
does
to me
anybody
where.
else have that feeling? I feel like you might connect at some point there.
Yeah, just want a job.
Maybe.
Let me jump in here because you said something interesting about going into illustration and on that track. So I want to go back to school a little bit, guys, and talk about that.
Tom just wants to school you. Is really what he means.
Yeah. So I have a lot of points to make, and no question. But there's a lot of people in the audience right now that are in school or just out of school, and basically, or maybe even about to go to school. We tell our students all the time, because this was my experience. Tony and I went to Cal Arts. They did not teach us illustration whatsoever. I feel strongly that a good art school, animation school, should be training you in composition, character design. A lot of people don't realize character design is a big part of even illustrating a children's book, as you had to do the children's, designs basically for Wicked. So we're often telling them that this pivot, I don't want to call it a pivot, but this side, another track that you can go on from having an animation degree is definitely illustration. That, well, you may not have gotten the training on rendering and things like that. Hopefully you've learned a lot about with storyboarding, composition, and showing how to do storytelling, because any good school is teaching you storytelling. So I'm going to start over there with Andy there. You know, did you find that a lot of your training helped you in both areas, honestly, that that's why you're able to kind of go back and forth?
Yes, actually, they're really connected. I remember my illustration teacher in college saying that you've got 2 seconds to tell that story visually. That's it. And so it's got to be very, very clear, as opposed to fine art, which can be the viewer or the interpreting it how they want to interpret it. There's a kind of a break there. And the same with children's books. It's kind of like a gettable, iconic image. You need to understand pretty quickly what the character's doing, what their motivations are, even if there are no words. Like Pete's book, there's one word in there. So the illustrations do the entire storytelling, which is amazing. So they're very, very connected in terms of having to have a very quick read to tell the story and create a mood very quickly visually.
Yeah, I found that working in animation versus children's books, because in animation we have to come up with all of these variations really quickly. We have to work super fast. But when I came over to children's books, the deadlines they seemed like wide, even like 3 months seemed like, oh, this is great, even though that's like crazy, you know. But for something like this, like I think I worked on it for like 2 years. So I was able to kind of iterate and do a lot of idea, you know, get a lot of ideas out in the public, and then hit these deadlines. They're like, oh my God, you're hitting your deadlines? Like, we never have illustrators who hit their deadlines. Like, this is crazy. Like, and I think the animation really helped me, because you're forced, you know, every day we're constantly thinking about new ideas and showing our directors new ideas and producers and everything. So that was a huge, I think, benefit.
You know what, I just want to jump on that. I had read an article, and this was a few years back, that the editors were starting to discover, it was about animators that were getting into children's books. And the editors had realized, oh my gosh, animators, and you could say other art directors, they're used to hitting deadlines. They would come in and they could do concept really fast of what, and then if they threw them a change, they would make that change really fast and turn it around. And that there was sort of, and this was, again, we'll say up to 10 years ago, a real shift, and it was a turnoff before that to have animation people come in, oh, that's another thing, you don't know what we're doing. There was sort of gates up, you could say. And that those gates, I think by now, and Elsa, you're a really good example of that and all the work you're doing, that the gates have gone down. It might be even just the opposite, that now they see the value of animation training and in how fast you are iterating and sketching and coming up with a new concept. Elsa, have you kind of heard any of that in your adventures?
So yeah, 3 months is really, really tight deadline, and I've never been late. I've always somehow made sure I was turning things on time, and I think that's why they keep coming back and asking me, like, do this book.
Now you have 2 weeks.
Oh God, I've had ones where like they were very tight, and I was like, why did I say yes to this? But so I wanted to add something about like the animation and how if it helps like, you know, get into children's book. And I graduated with a visual development portfolio, so I had props, I had characters, I had environments, I had color keys. All of that together, you can, like, it's the same stuff that makes up children's book. So I didn't, like, I'm a character designer now, but that's not what I graduated with. Like, my portfolio had like a variety of all of these things. And you have to be able to like work with composition and color and like character posing, and all of that was required, and it's like what I feel like publishing companies, the art directors in it, are looking for. So I feel like having a very well-rounded portfolio can really help, especially if you work with a lot of color. Most of the people that I know that work in animation who also do children's book are visual development artists. Like, very rarely do I know just like a prop designer or just a character designer doing children's books? Since I came from visual development, I kind of had a lot of that in my work already. So
That's awesome.
That means you can draw backgrounds.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
She can do it all.
This conversation brings up something that, trauma. Okay, I'll just say it from my past, which is that I was one of those animators. I'd started at Disney and had some early success, but I always dreamed of, I had in the back pocket, I'm going to do a comic strip or a children's book. That's what I really want to do. Disney, it's okay, whatever. Lion King, yeah, it's fun, but what I really want to do is...
You had one foot out the door.
I already did, and it was stupid, of course. But I took a class at I don't want to name they're probably in the house here, one of the schools that's in California. And I had a teacher that had not grown up through animation, didn't have the same skill sets, but she was a pretty darn successful children's book illustrator, but that's like all she did, that's what she came from. She was so hard on me on the assignments. I like almost failed that class because she was just like, oh, for you animator over here, you know, you wouldn't understand this, but blah, blah, blah. And she really talked down my background in animation, and it kind of had I'm just going to say, a snobby attitude towards being an illustrator and the craft of arts, and she saw herself as a greater artist because she didn't come from the commercial world of cartoons and yeah. And so, I almost failed that class. Do you guys feel that in the industry, though? You guys having this background in animation, is it helpful, or do people kind of look at you differently? Has it been a help or a hinder in your career? Hindrance.
No, that's a great, what you said was excellent. I've felt that before too. I think I can't say either way. It's tough. I can see both sides to that though, because I'm constantly trying to unlearn all the rules that I learned in animation in order to illustrate a book. There's like all the things about perspective, and I'm trying to tap into my kid self and how I pictured things. And if you go into elementary school and you see the drawings on the wall of first, second graders, they're masterpieces. They come out just naturally like that. And I'm trying to be I'm trying to make it look intentionally unintentional, if that makes sense.
That's a hard thing to do. Yeah.
Very hard. To have that confidence of a second grader, right? To tell a story, and I think that's what drew me to picture books was that idea that I could tell a little bit more of a niche type story, and then at the same time also work on a big studio film. You know, like going back and forth is a really awesome thing. But Andy, I like what you said about like you have to like stop yourself from like making this like beautiful perspective spread and like really simplify when you're doing storybooks. Because I go through that all the time. It's like, you know, when we're world building in animation, we want to create this, you know, impeccable, beautiful world that we can live and step into. And then in picture books, sometimes it's about less is more. It's like what you don't show is super important, you know. And it's like subtracting that and taking away from, you know, illustrations and whatnot.
Well, and let me add another layer to this. And this is on the negative side. Honestly, I tried to get an agent once to be a kids book illustrator. I'd already done a lot of kids books, right? A lot of the licensing ones. And so I had a portfolio and stuff. And so to get the agent, and I'd love to talk about agents briefly, okay? I have a love-hate relationship, mostly hate, with editors and agents. But anyway, I would submit to this agent. I only did it once, so, you know, I could have kept trying. But I was just like, I'd like to write and illustrate a book. And to me, that was sort of, again, like Tony was saying, that's a pinnacle. That was something I was trying to reach. And so I said, okay, I got to get an agent first, and I'd play that game. And I submitted stuff, and she immediately got back to me and was like, okay, yeah, very nice and stuff. And, oh, you worked on a few films, that's nice. But honestly, we already have that a Disney girl. I think that's the way she put it. Or a Disney guy, whatever. And meaning we only need one of those that's going to do all the licensing books. And that's the category they were putting me in.
Because you're like more of a commercial artist.
Right. I can copy model sheets and make a children's book that's going to be for and it wasn't as high end as Golden Books, by the way. This was just, we'll put you in the licensing category. But I was like, no, but I have story ideas and I want to write and illustrate some books, and I'll do a different style, I'll try, whatever. But she just sort of categorized me, and I literally couldn't get an agent. I didn't try hard, but I tried that one. And did any of you kind of, again, this is sort of like being categorized, any of that, any hurdles there?
I don't know if the reason I get all these licensed projects is because I mostly work with characters and do model sheets and stuff like that. I've never been given the note that I could kind of go beyond the style. I just kind of assumed it's safer to just stay as close to the original IP as possible. But I mean, I've seen illustrators like Joey Chu, Lorelei Beauvais, they've done tons of little golden books for Disney, and their style is completely different to the movies. So yeah, I don't know if I'm being typecasted or not.
Well, but they're hiring you, which I think is great. They're hiring you for Elsa Chang's version of their characters. They're not asking you to go, here's the model sheets and try and hit this.
No, I get like some references, and they're never like, oh, this isn't exactly it. I'm able to kind of diverge a little bit and kind of add a little bit of my style.
Let me jump on that to say that it feels like it was the advent of CG animated films where we started going, and Pixar started it. Honestly, they were doing the little golden books and things like that. And they were trying to figure out how do we make our CG films. And there were some real failures at the very beginning, the Toy Story days, where they would try to make it look really rendered in CG, and like, should we print out just prints? And they were too busy to do that internally at Pixar. And so they went the route, and in true Pixar fashion, of like, let's find the new, fresh way. And they went, and like, because I remember the Finding Nemo style, when they were doing Finding Nemo, I did a comic book version, and they sent me the style that they'd kind of come up with. They hired somebody like you that would, and reinterpolated, their style into a real children's booky kind of softer, fun, simplified style. And that was how they did those books and stuff. Have you guys seen that too? Like, that's where you're having to sort of take the movie style and tweak it into something else. I mean,
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, definitely. Like the brushes I use it's like very chalky feeling, so it kind of gives like a pastel illustration to it, I guess. And I use a lot of textures. So I think they do like that classic. They do enjoy that classical children's book kind of look and feel of it. I mean, Disney Publishing, they come out with multiple books of like one movie, and there's some that are very rendered, and then some that are just very simplified. I think maybe for me, I just tend to lean towards the more simplified category.
yeah.
Okay, I got one. Let's talk a little bit about the other aspect of why artists might switch back and forth between animation, doing stuff for that, or children's book, from the financial perspective. So these days...
Here we go.
All right, just hold on. These days, there's really a downturn in the animation industry. Am I shocking everybody? There's not a lot of jobs right now in the animation industry. So some people might look at it as like, where can I go to use a lot of my skills in this crafts of telling stories, creating characters? So kind of a sister side of it would be publishing and children's books. Is there a pivot there? What do you guys think about artists pivoting from a financial standpoint? I guess I'm asking, can you survive in both? Is that possible financially? Can you provide for your family on the children's book side? I know the answer in animation is yes, if you're consistent with the project and stuff. What about on the children's side? Is it a good pivot these days for people?
Gosh, I can't wait to hear Pete's answer in a second, actually. But I'm not at the place where I could give up animation and still, get my kids into college and pay the house payments. It's not going to happen. Not quite yet. But I did message you a couple years ago saying, are you doing that? And if you are, how'd you do it? And I would, and feel free to say, feel fine to say this, if I got this huge, massive deal for a book today, I would be out of animation in a heartbeat. I love it. I love it, and it's been a fantastic job.
Really?
But my heart is really in books.
You
it's
just
really,
shocked me.
And this is a guy that's a production designer very recently. What was the last time you production designed?
Wandala. I just finished Wandala, and
Wandala,
it was
right?
on Apple and a few others. I'm working on another one right now, and it has been wonderful, wonderful. I love it, but to be able to just have the freedom to do books full time would just be incredible.
And that'd be writing and illustrating, I assume, right?
Yeah,
You want to
writing,
do both.
writing,
You
yeah,
want to be
both.
that auteur a little bit.
Yeah, and I will say,
get that.
there was a time I told myself, I'll never be a writer, ever, just an illustrator. I'll never be a character designer, I can only do backgrounds. I'll never work in clay because it blew up in the kiln, and that seems to be what I always do. So these are opportunities I probably wouldn't have got in animation, but children's book opened up those possibilities for me to do it, and I've gotten better and better and better at it. I got on a tangent, but you're next.
Pete, what about you?
No, I mean, so I started in animation, and children's book was always kind of a side hustle type. Oh, I love it. I want to do it. I'm inspired to do it, and I'm getting, as the years go on, you get, a couple more book deals, and by luck of, chance, one of the series does really well, and so recently I have kind of put my focus on children's books. Even though I love animation right now, I'm keeping my foot in the animation door by pitching some of my book ideas into animated series. And I found that I've pitched a lot of ideas before I've done books, and it didn't go anywhere. But the books have become a great calling card for studios, even though studios aren't picking up anything right now. Yeah. Anyways, but they have been. We have three different books in development at different production companies, and I think that's been a really cool kind of like backwards way of getting into pitching your own show. Mm-hmm. So that's.
So did you want to hit on that, Elsa?
Really. I feel like I'm still pretty green to this, but I do maybe like 1 to 2 books a year, and
while still being in the animation industry.
yes, while
right?
being in animation.
So it is a side gig.
It is a side gig for me. I don't see myself doing it full time unless like I absolutely have to, like I can't find work anywhere. But for me, I feel like it'd be pretty difficult to sustain myself.
So, I want to jump in, Tony.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of licensing books too. I'm more on that side of things, Elsa. And I did find it was my full-time gig for a little while there. I had my own company, and I was kind of doing that, and we would do animation development and all that. But for a while there, a few months at least at a time, six months, it was children's books. We had like a whole scholastic deal to do like 6 VeggieTale books, and so it was like a nice juicy chunk of time. And I would just go through, again, this is the animation side, and by the way, not near as pretty. You don't see me selling my children's books at my table. It was a job. I was getting them out. So I was doing them but what I found was, and you kind of hinted at this earlier, is they'd give me like 6 months, at least 3 months minimum, but 6 months sometimes to do. Licensing books are usually faster. I mean, like what you guys are doing when you're an original thing, it's 6 months to a year to do this book, right? Because they're going to edit, re-edit, rewrite. They were going to go through the whole process. But for licensing deals, it's 3-6 months maybe. It's a lot quicker turnaround. And so I would take on those turnarounds, but I would do it in a month and not tell them, because I had multiple books I was doing, and I would just sort of sit on it and send it a couple weeks later, even though I got it done in a week. You know what I mean? Like the roughs or something. And so I was doing it, kind of cranking them out, honestly. And they were happy with it, so I'm not saying they were, too bad. But what I found was that, it could be a good income, honestly, because they were also, I felt like paying a decent amount of money. I'll just throw out some numbers, but it was like $10,000 to $20,000 to do a book, a licensing book.
That's start to finish?
Yeah, I'm not writing it, so somebody else wrote it. You get the script, and usually you already have...
I know you're not a writer, so I got that.
Thank you. I'm a writer. I write some things. Anyway, but I just kind of want to... And I don't know if those numbers have changed. It's probably... Maybe that's on the low side for what things are going for now. But again, it was sort of a bulk kind of a situation. $6, we'll give you this amount, per book. And so I was like, gone, I'm done, ready to go. I'm trying to think of what.
I'm wondering if there's a question in that.
Yeah, no, I had a question.
With the licensing stuff, talk about royalties a little bit. Was there any royalties tied?
No.
Because the licensing stuff that I ever did,
There's no royalties.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
You're right. That is a downside. It's a gig.
So what I found is that a lot of times, in animation, we work for the studio. Everything we create, the studio owns, right? When we do original picture books, and this is one reason why I love picture books, the illustrator and author are tied into those royalties. So forever, you will, if the book does well, then you receive those royalties. And I love that the picture book world respects, especially the illustrators, for that reason. Because I think, a lot of times as artists, we're kind of taking for granted, and it's like, oh, you guys just draw that, it's fine. So, but that's one thing that's kind of, that I love about the picture book world, even though it's really hard to
in the
earn
comic
out.
book world, that it's taken a long time. Honestly, it was the writers that would get a lot of the rights, and they would give a little bit to the illustrator. I created Deadpool. Rob Liefeld, hi. But sometimes, even back then, they were still kind of going, but the writer came up with all the ideas, blah, blah, blah. They get the majority of those rights. And so it sounds like it's a little more 50-50 with an illustrator.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're talking about the business side too, and to go a little bit deeper into that. Tom alluded to illustrators in the children's book industry having agents. Boom, 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 right? But I feel like in the children's book market, we have agents in the animation industry. Many people have agents that'll do just their contract negotiation and then kind of be done with them. But in children's books, a lot of times they're the ones helping you get the jobs. I've heard that if you're going to be a children's book illustrator, you have to have an agent. Like, there's no other way. In animation, it's not like that, but is that what you guys have found? And what's the pros and cons to an agent?
Gosh, yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad I came back to this because this is, I get asked this a lot. It is really important. I mean, the editors are getting hundreds of books a day, or more. And if you have an agent, then that book kind of gets right in there. They gets right in the top of the list or whatever. So that's really important. But how to get an agent it is really hard. That's the truth of it. It took me a long, long time. And what I did, all I can tell you is what I did. I looked at books that I really loved and that kind of felt a little bit like what I wanted to do. I found out who their agents were, and I reached out and got lots of rejections. But I started putting stuff online on Instagram, and everyone I talked to, I'd be like, I wanted to be a kid's book illustrator. If you knew me, that's what I talked about. And I put it online. I had Wolf Boy stuff online. I had Bug Zoo stuff. Someone finally reached out to me, and I wish it could have been easier. Like I could have called an agent. Sure, come on over, but it's not how it worked. She reached out to me. And she helped me develop Wolf Boy into what it is. And then but right as it was about to right after it got picked up by Bloomsbury, she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to raise a family. I want to be out. And I'm like, oh God, no. But she helped me find another agent. And this agent's actually in Israel, and she's been fantastic. She works international deals and domestic deals, and she's been wonderful. Like just a really great human being, but also really knows the industry kind of at an international level. That's my experience, but it is very important to have one if you can.
Yeah. For animation, I don't have an agent. I have a lawyer that does the one-time contract. But for children's books, I think they are the gatekeepers to the publishers. Luckily, I got an agent about, 12 or 13 years ago.
How did you get the agent?
She reached out to me, and I was incredibly lucky, but I was putting out work. You said about like putting your work out there. That's how agents are going to find you, whether you're sending work to them or putting it up on a website or to the web or whatever that is. I was doing that without even really knowing that I was kind of doing that, and she found me.
But there was a little name it and claim it where you were saying, I want to do children's books like Andy.
Right.
So that's how she even kind of thought of you as that? Okay.
And and now my agent, my children's book agent, is a great collaborator, and her and I will come together, and I've got this pitch idea, and she'll go out and pitch it to publishers, and she has the direct line to the top editors at HarperCollins, Simon Schuster, Penguin, Random House, all of that. So it's kind of I think it's a must,
One sec, I want Elsa to answer that. Please line up over here if we're at that point. Nobody waved at us.
Q&A is upon
you
us.
Let me down.
Come
But
on.
this is Q&A.
You guys
time, so
got
get in line.
questions.
And Elsa, back to you.
There's a mic right there.
Do you have an agent? I assume you do.
So I am unagented.
Whoa! Who expected that?
Oh, mic
Are there
drop.
any agents out there that Elsa Chang?
Yeah,
Elsa's
can I be your
looking for an
agent?
agent.
I want to be your
phone's
agent.
gonna blow up.
Yeah. It's since this is more of like a side project for me. It's not my main income. And most of the work I do is IP stuff. I only have royalties on one book. And so I feel I can see how an agent can be very helpful in helping you, get better royalties and, read the contracts and really understand what's in them. I just do all this on my own. I wouldn't recommend it.
You just want all the money. I get it. 100% goes to Elsa.
But it does make sense that it's more relationship driven, probably on the licensing side, you could say, in that they're gonna, as long as you do that first book, it opens the door to the next, and maybe other people are seeing it, because obviously in the editorial world, or the editors are all looking at everybody else's work, and if it's golden books on top of that, that's a pretty big one that people are going to notice. So
I think we're going to call Rebel Elsa. From now on, you're just Rebel Elsa. I love it. Let's go to the Q&A. So name and then your question.
Hi, my name is Adwa Hernandez. I am a children's book illustrator. I've done a lot of them, almost
Yay.
like around 40. And right now I am mostly as a product designer for holiday decor, and animatronics is fun. However, my husband and I co-wrote a pilot episode for a children's book series. We already made a pitch deck, but based on your experience, is there an advice for a successful pitch deck? Something that you can tell us?
For an animated project you're talking about?
Yes.
I have no experience with that.
Yeah.
I feel like this might be those guys.
Then we'll take it. Yeah.
We've had a lot of experience with that. Yeah, so you want to hit this one?
Well, yeah, so it sounds like you already know the basics, right? You already have done your research, so congratulations. Good job on that. Are you saying that this book is already out?
No, it's not already out. We created the story mostly for a children's show.
Yeah, you
But
want to do this
however-
show and then maybe do some
But
spin-off?
however, if we don't get the show made, our second choice was to make a series of book and try to prove the concept.
So I'm going to tell you something depressing first, which is, as we all know, what's the golden way to go is you put out a children's book, it has millions of followers, people love it, it's a bestseller. The animated show is so easy at that point.
Yeah,
to
the
sell,
bar, right? The bar or something like that.
The route you're going is, well, like the rest of us in the room, honestly.
Yeah.
I have an idea, I'm going to put together a pitch deck, and I'm going to compete with everybody else in the room to try and
the
get
hardest possible
right.
route.
And because you're asking them to give you money. Honestly, that's
Yeah.
what the heart of what we're doing, right? Let's all make it clear. And part of that exchange is if they do say, I want to do your thing, I'm going to give you this amount of money. I'm also now going to own a lot of it, if not all of it, right? And so I just want to make that clear. I know it's a little off tangent, but that's the deal that we're making with those people. And so, yes, and they never want to give up their money. So I'm basically not giving you an answer. What I am saying, though, is that it's challenging, and let's just be honest about that. What you need to do is what you're doing. So now getting it out there and pitching it around to the studios, and there's a place called Kids Screen Summit and it's in this next February. I'm going to go there, do basically the same thing, pitch a lot of my own properties that I've
It's
developed.
your competition.
Yeah, so I hope you don't go. You know, it's a hard road, and it's sort of like, how do I get an agent? We kind of were going down there. All of us, they all kind of had a different route in. There's no real one route, but this one's even harder because unlike agents are going, I want you because I'm going to make money off you, and that you just have to feel like you're worth that value to them. But they're not putting money out. They're just going to make money off of them. There's a lot less gamble. What you want to do is say, please give me a lot of money. You don't know who I am, and you're just betting on the concept of me. So all I'm saying is, it is hard.
Yeah. So
That's the
actually-
evil twin answer. Here's the other
Oh, you got a
twin's
good one?
answer.
Okay, good. Yeah.
You don't get anything if you don't try.
Yeah.
Do what your heart passion is. Follow this. I love that you're doing this with your husband. Do it. Don't listen to people like that, because there are always things that are going to be against you, that are going to tell you it's not
It's
possible.
just giving realities.
It's like winning the lottery and all that kind of stuff. But somebody has to win the lottery. Go win the lottery.
Thank you.
I was getting there. I was about to
Thank
say
you.
that, but thank you.
We gotta, come on up and name and question.
Hello, I'm Callista Dawson. This is actually my second time on your podcast, so thanks for opening it up to the audience. That's so awesome of you. My question today is for the independent projects. How do you go about deciding which story in your head is going to be successful, and then how do you convince other people that it's going to fly before it exists? Do you know what I mean?
Well, you have to be really objective about your own work, and that's tough. That's difficult to do. I have 10 or 11 ideas in my head all the time,
Right.
and they're in different stages of development, and they're kind of like, when I get tired or I get stuck, I move on to another one, and they all just kind of do this all the time. But for reasons I still don't really understand, sometimes the publisher, I just got a book picked up, which is great, like a week ago.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you. And in her mind, this is a really big book. It could be a really big book, right? But another one that I showed her, she didn't like, I really loved. And she goes, no, this is a really small idea. Like, it's not to me, I can't, it's really hard for me. That's where an agent really helps, actually, is to pick out, like, they have this bigger view of what's really going to hit the public and what they're going to feel. It's hard because we feel close to everything we do, so.
Yeah, and I think, like, work on your idea, right? Like, iterate and show other people, right? Because I think when you share ideas and you just don't hold them tight to you, that's when you're explaining your idea to somebody, you're going to start kind of figuring out how to solve those creative problems or something. But like, go through have a support group, some of your friends that you trust, that what do you think about this idea, and talk about it and draw it and write it and create it.
Would you ever consider independently publishing something that your agent didn't like?
At this point, no, I wouldn't, just because I have a kind of an established brand, so to speap. But
yeah, that makes sense.
if it was something that I really loved and I was like, nobody's gonna buy this, then I'm just gonna make it myself.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it just depends on how much I would really love that.
No, but I like that question.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to hear that, because we're also saying how hard it is, right? Oh, and these are all people, all of us, that have been in the animation industry, and so you're going, well, that's not me. How do I do it, right?
Right.
So thank you for bringing that up, in that I think doing a book and self-publishing it has a lot of value. Yeah. There's very inexpensive ways to do it nowadays. Print on demand is one of the biggest ones. Yeah. I would strongly suggest that to the people that are just going, I have an amazing idea. And now that's something you can take to an agent, by the way, too. That might be your way into an agent. And obviously, if it's sold really well, that'd be the number one thing they're going to ask, how many have you sold? But you at least have something that you've done, and you could say, well, I'm not great at marketing and all that. There could be decent excuses why that didn't sell very well. But they can at least look at it and go, oh, but I can see this has wings, right? And so I'm trying to be Tony and just say, spread your wings. Work hard.
I do like your shoes, Tom. I'm kind of jealous of
you.
those, but the shirt on the shirt look is weird.
This was your idea.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Hey guys, my name's Ashley Malis. Nice to meet you guys.
Hi.
So my question is regarding kind of portfolio development. So I just graduated, and I am kind of like, I want to do visual development, but I've also wanted to do like kidlit. So it's hard to know, I don't want to spread myself too thin and be developing 2 portfolios at the same time. Do you guys recommend just kind of focusing on animation just to break in, especially as a student, to maybe just start with one? Because I know both are like highly competitive. So yeah, I guess what your guys' advice, like maybe just develop at the same time or kind of just focus, you know, on one?
And I want to layer into that the industries right now, where they are. We know what animation looks like, and I don't know what children's books look like right now.
You guys want to start?
I think you should be very specific with your portfolio. I think if you want to go into animation, tailor that to animation. And if it's, you know, character design specifically, then tailor that. And then if it's, you know, children's book, then tailor your portfolio to that. And I think that you might have some crossover, but be really specific in your approach.
Yeah, it depends on how much time you've got right now, too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have figure out how much time you've got, and then it might just be enough to just work on that animation portfolio. You know, you've got many years ahead of you that you can also do the other, which is great. But if you divide yourself too much, you might have 2 books that are decent, you know, and rather than working on one book that's great, you know.
Oh, I guess I will say something. To me, it's always there has to be reality to every answer to this question, right? Are you living with mom and dad? Do you have to pay your bills? Do you have to have a job to survive? You probably know the answer to this question already because you know the reality that you're in, the stage of life that you're in, where you're at position-wise. The only thing I will say is
Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome. Dad answer. But don't let, whatever we do in children's books, whatever we do in animation is hard work. Don't let hard work come against you and make you stop. But realities of life are realities of life, and you know yourself and what's going to keep you mentally healthy, make you happy. Pursue happiness first and use the realities of what makes you happy as you make that choice.
Great answer.
Tony's
Thank you,
all
guys.
inspiration. All right, might be our last. Here we go.
Yeah.
Made it. Hi guys, I'm Majo Solis, and I just had a quick question. When receiving a contract from a publishing house or through your agent, what are some things to maybe avoid in a contract that you don't want to
Good
deal
question.
with later? Or a positive thing, like what are some things that you want to see in there?
I think you should look at, like, do you retain those rights for TV and theatrical, right? Can you take your idea that you created, your book that you created, and do you still retain those for them to go out to make a TV show or to make a feature film? I think that's super important. That's something that your agent, and that's one reason why I think getting an agent is good. And then, looking at your rates, looking at timeline and when things are due, because they'll help you negotiate that. I don't know what else. That's it. Yeah.
Only other thing I'd add is rights, so worldwide rights versus just like rights here in North America or something like that. Generally, if they really like a book, they're going to want, the publisher will want worldwide rights to it. But they don't necessarily, if you've never done a book, you're like, oh my God, that means it's going to be in every country in the world, but that's not necessarily true. They may try 1 or 2 countries and it might not go so well, and then they still own it. Where if you kind of limit it to North American rights or something like that, then your agent can then shop it around to different countries and continue to generate income from that book from different areas. So that's just one thing to consider.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I've done a couple books that are drawing and art instruction books, and those have done the best. And as far as Random House picked one of them up, and that's what they do. This is a little known fact is that they don't necessarily publish it in whatever Japan or something like that. They make a deal with a Japanese publisher and sub-sell those rights to them. You do get the money, but you still have royalties to it. It's usually a lesser amount of royalty, but still, that's kind of part of the deal, and how they go about that is that, so even if it's a smaller publisher, it doesn't have to be just a Scholastic or Random House like a big one. It can be a smaller publisher, but as long as they're good at getting those rights out there to the world, other publishers are taking those rights and basically publishing it. So.
And
Awesome.
just
Thank
like
you.
that, we have to come to a conclusion, you all. Let's hear it for our panel today.